We're soaking wet. We need food. We're a family of 5 attempting to escape society on our 1977 Fuji 45-foot sailboat. We got 2 dogs, 3 kids, my wife, and we're out of here. So join us because it's going to be a raw, minimally edited, realistic, real life version of what it's like to buy a boat and escape society. I hope you enjoy the show. Bye.
That sounds worse than before.
What was that noise?
Hi everyone, now that we have the YouTube video series going, I thought I'd replay a old interview that my brother did. He's got an awesome podcast that he does with his friend, One Night in Pinehurst. Highly recommend it. But they interviewed me and asked me a bunch of questions that kind of summarize all the basics about the boat plan. So, yeah, check it out. I hope you enjoy it. And this is episode number 2. Bye.
And we're off. We're back again. Holiday week at One Night in Pinehurst. We're really excited to share a special guest with a great story. Aaron and Maddie is going to make the introduction here. This is Brothers Week. So, Maddie, off to you, my friend.
Well, I think we started it with Family Week, so we don't want to limit it, but I suppose this is probably as far as we need to go. Yeah, this is a fun little concept that I think, much like the overall theme of this show, we figured it on the fly, Family Week, which is nice, but it works out pretty well. So my brother Aaron has one of the more fascinating stories in terms of what he's planning to do, and we're going to get into that today. He's dubbed it the boat plan. And so as I think people will come to realize here as we go, my brother is definitely, he marches to the beat of his own drum in all the good ways. So he's kind of going at life a different way, and he's found a different path, and he's completely happy with that path. So I'm excited. We're going to get a fun little back and forth. We'll get some stories I think listeners will enjoy. We have a lot of common mutual friends too. So I think people will get a good kick out of this. But coming to us live from the boat is Aaron. Aaron, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I'm excited. Looking forward to where this conversation takes us.
Yeah. Gibby, you had a great conversation. Oh, sorry, I should ask. Green room, back room?
It was in the green room, because this might be going out, especially because we had the background. Aaron's on the boat, so it's definitely going to go out to YouTube. So green room. Otherwise, it's backstage. Aaron, sorry, I flipped. Between green room, backstage.
I just like to keep you on your toes. Green room works. You informally started the podcast in the green room by just kind of catching up and asking my brother how he got to this point, and I think we should just do it again. It was a great answer. It was a great back and forth.
I think it was fantastic. So
yeah,
I was really curious, right? Like we're gonna get to, I was gonna say the Moby Dick of the story, but so much pun intended there with the
You're gonna edit that out. You're gonna edit it out.
I know. But some of the meat of it, but and talk about the boat plan, as you put it, Maddie. But I was really curious, like what was the impetus? Like, when did you start thinking about, Aaron, like, hey, we're going to take our family, we're going to go on this trip. And then we'll get to the planning process too. But if you don't mind kind of telling us a little bit about that trigger moment, or what, really caught your attention there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like I was saying before, it's kind of strange how you can look back at life sometimes and you'll remember there can be these very specific moments, and that can totally change the trajectory of your life. So for Liz and I, my wife, we were living in Templeton on a cul-de-sac, beautiful little neighborhood. Everything was fine, but we weren't really fully content. And I remember Liz looking at me and being like, do you want to live in Templeton for the rest of your life? And I'm like, no. So I'm a nurse. And we decided at that point, we had a daughter, Mila, who was about 8 months old, I think. let's go travel around the country, and you can take 3-month travel assignments, and then we'll decide where we want to live. So we rented a house. We moved into Liz's mother's house. In the meantime, I took a travel assignment in Massachusetts, which led me to like a 3-hour commute. During that commute, I discovered podcasts, started listening to everything. And one of the podcasts was called Family Adventure Podcast. And during that podcast, this guy talked about how he was working, I think in the construction business. He had like 3 or 4 kids, did the classic 40, 50 hours a week, kind of saw the kids, never had anything like deep, meaningful going on with them because life was just too busy. So they decided to sell everything, and they bought a catamaran in Greece. They had limited sailing experience. They sailed a boat on a lake, I guess, but that was it. And their thought was, even though they didn't know how to sail much, they're going to move onto this catamaran in Greece, and they could motor island to island because you could see all the islands there. And worst case scenario, they don't sail much, but they have a year adventure and time with the family to be together and live in the islands and where Greece is. And I was like, oh, that sounds amazing. And then they ended up spending 5 years sailing around the Mediterranean. His wife got pregnant. They had a baby in Israel. And then they were about to sell the boat in the Mediterranean, fly back home. And somebody was like, oh, when are you crossing? And they said, crossing what? Like the Atlantic. And they're like, we're not crossing the Atlantic. That's crazy.
You're nuts.
And they're like, of course you could cross the Atlantic. You just sailed in the Mediterranean. That's way harder. There's nothing to hit in the Atlantic. And they're like, never even crossed my mind. So then they sailed across the Atlantic. 5 years later, sold the boat. Now they're back in normal life. And he started a podcast about families doing this kind of stuff. And I remember just like the sun is setting, that podcast is going off and it's ding, 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 ding. I'm like, I have to do that. I have to do that. And that was a good like 7 years ago.
Okay.
And it's slowly just been trickling in the mind. And then as far as the travel nursing end of the story goes, we went to San Diego, stayed there 8 months, had our second child, Harrison. Then we moved to Petaluma, where we are now, and then never left Petaluma. We really love it here. So we intended to keep traveling, but now we're here, bought a house, got a little roots going on. Work is good, but then life is just it's too busy. And then the boat plan, I call it, just kept like percolating in the back of my mind. And now it's like, it's taken drastic actions to make it happen.
Yeah. And I think you and I talked about this too. Well, a couple things. One, there is scientific evidence that people that live near bodies of water and see water and are on or work around water are just happier in general. I
did not know that, but I can picture that.
Yeah, I came across that somewhere recently, and I thought about it because when I asked you if you wanted to come on the podcast a few weeks ago when we were talking, I said to you, shoot me straight. What percentage chance is there of something going terribly wrong during this journey? And you told me, because I was thinking about it, like, to me, being in the middle of the ocean is horrifying. The ocean terrifies me. I don't know what's going on under the water. I don't need to be out there, right? There's nothing for me. But you're right. It's easier to be out there where there's really nothing and tons of space than navigating islands and potential things under the water in bays and stuff like that. So that was comforting to hear that you had that percentage chance of something going terribly wrong at 1% or less, which is nice. But now that we've set the foundation for the boat plan, and the boat plan is literally the name of what you're calling this process, right? Like your Instagram is the boat plan. Like it's all every day you've got these cool videos where you're like, you're on the toilet talking about something you're fixing or you're doing work on the boat. And so like you're physically putting your time into it. Now that we've laid the foundation here, can you give us a sense of what the route is going to look like? Are they going to let you go right in through the Panama Canal? Like, what are you planning to do? What's the hope? What's the current plan in terms of your path on the journey, and how long is it going to take?
So pretty much, of course, in my mind, I would like to go sail forever until the kids are 30.
Yep.
Or at least Mila. But I'm going to break it down. So the plan is break it down into stages. Stage 1, we're going to sail down to Sea of Cortez. That involves skipping down the coast of California. And actually did that on somebody else's boat. I was crew for them. left
Yep.
out of the gate of San Francisco, 3 days, no land in sight to Channel Islands. But anyway, skip down the coast of California into Mexico, and then spend about 7 months in Mexico, where every single review and talk to a bunch of people that have been down there, just love it.
Port to port in Mexico along the coast, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's and it's less port to port, but more like anchor in a beautiful bay
Yep.
with this island setting with marine life, clear water, warm weather. You spend a couple days there, a couple weeks there, however long you want. And when you
A
decide,
personal
like,
cruise.
oh,
You're creating a
yeah.
personal cruise. Yeah.
yes, let's go
Yep.
check out the next spot. You can go sail to the next spot. Most of it, the goal is to be pretty self-sufficient. So we have a water maker, a ton of space for storage. Theoretically, like we wouldn't have to go into port barely at all.
Mhm.
It seems like most people do to stock up on provisions, but
Yeah.
a lot of people that do that, they don't like pulling into a marina and tying up to a slip. It's like busy, kind of
Yeah.
dirty, but you can explore, the islands, the country. Everybody says it's beautiful. Like the people are super friendly, nice. So we'll do that. And then at that point, there'll be a decision to make. If everybody hates it, which is quite possible. Every time we brought the kids and like family out for like an overnight like
Right.
cruise on the bay, half the time I just want to throw them all in the water. So I don't know. That might be my case too. We'll see. But if we do 7-8 months there and everybody's like, you know what, that was a great time, but time to go home. I think I'll be content inside to like,
Yeah.
we got a good chunk of time out of life, spent 24 hours a day with each other. Time to
The
go
goal
back.
is to start. The goal is to start the journey and see where it takes you. Like there's really no, you've told me before, there's no end point. It's whatever you feel like. You're just going to kind of quite literally let the wind take you, which
Yeah.
I think
And-
checks the box.
And for me, the overall arching goal is just spend time with the family
Mhm.
and to like really know my kids more. The sailboat is simply just a means to do that. It's not really about sailing. Of course, like one of the other drivers, I want to have my kids see other countries. I want to have them see people that aren't stuck to iPads every day,
Yep.
don't have as much wealth, and that are happy or happier, and just expose them to that sort of life. But the main gist is me being involved with my children and helping to raise them, and just spending more time than like a couple hours a day, catching them at the end of school doing homework, have to do bedtime. Anybody's that's a parent, I
With
think.
bedtime and
Yeah.
and then you have the weekend, you have a couple days and you got to get back to work. And
Yeah, it's just like sports, school. It's too
Right.
busy. I don't like it.
I'm curious about the actual sailing aspect. And before you like got this thought process and it was sitting there, you listened to the podcast and you're thinking about, okay, I want to do this. This sounds amazing. This is me. And it sort of trickles in. Had you, had a history with sailing or anything on the ocean before, or was this sort of a driver to say, I want to learn how to sail. I want to, start to look at what it's like to own a boat and get out on the water.
It was mainly the driver. My only sailing experience had been with my friend Dave. His father had a boat in Boston Harbor. And I went out with them like multiple times. And I remember getting seasick a lot and like vomiting in the boat. And I hated that. So I never had like this whole overall thing of like, I just want to sail. But no, as the podcast, listening to that. And then while I was working, there's this doctor I work with that is totally into sailing, and he took his family across the Pacific. And I didn't know that for a while. And then I learned about that. And I was like, wait a minute, did you cross the Pacific with your family in a sailboat? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, I want to do that. And he's like, you should. And I'm like, is it hard? And he's like, nope. I was like, okay.
So what's the training regimen? Like, what do you have to do to get ready for this trip? Like, depending on how long this goes, if it's just 7 months, it still sounds like, 3 days on the boat. Like I'd be comfortable with about 5 minutes if someone else was, the captain.
Yeah. It's so ironically, you really don't need any license legally Like you could go buy a sailboat and just leave without any training at all.
Okay.
Obviously, I don't want to do that with my family on board. I don't want to kill them all. So
Intentionally.
yeah. Living near San Francisco Bay, it's like one of the greatest sailing spots in the country, is consistent like 20, 30 knot winds every afternoon in the summer, which is, I learned later, very windy. There's currents, there's tons of boats. So I took sailing classes, ASA 101, 103, 104 with the local sailing club here. And then they let you pay a monthly membership fee and you could take their sailboats out to practice. So I took those courses, did that for about a year or so. And then my plan was to keep doing that. But then this boat kind of like happened.
Yeah.
And then, so bought this boat actually way earlier than I was expecting to. But quit that, and then I've just been practicing with this.
So I feel like more recently you've been kind of going full blast fixing the boat. And by fixing the boat, I mean getting it ready to sail proper, right? Because you bought it and you knew you were gonna have to do some work with it. It was a fixer-upper in a sense. What so far have you learned? Because I watch all of them because they're interesting to me, because you've always been the individual in my life who knows how to fix things and I don't. So you're a good teacher too. Like you're able to sort of like clearly communicate why there's a reason to do this. What's been the most difficult fix, I'll call it, or improvement or update that you've run into so far on the boat? What's been like the biggest one? And is it one that you didn't expect to be this bad, or was it one that you were expecting to be quite an undertaking?
So I guess, so when I bought this boat, after I'm heavy into I love researching things. So before buying this, it was thousands of hours of like podcasts, forums, what boat to buy. Picked that brain of the doctor I work with all the time, like what boat should I buy? Yeah. And going back to the sailing experience real quick, I was like, all right, doc, I need to buy this 20-foot boat, and then I'm going to sail that, and then I'm going to sell it in a year, buy a 30-foot boat. And I had this written down on paper, and then I'll buy the 45-foot to 50-foot boat. He picks a big circle, crosses out all of them, and he's like, just get the big boat, you'll be fine. To kind of sum up the whole, like what you need. He's like, the sailing part actually isn't that difficult. You need to know how to fix things.
Yeah.
Which now I understand. So yeah, this is a 1977 Fuji 45. So older boat, but like heavy build, designed for like crossing oceans basically.
Yeah.
And it looked like the previous owners had really outfitted it for crossing oceans. It's got pretty much everything we need, all the expensive gear on it, but it sat there for a long time and it was in need of like deferred maintenance. As far as like the toughest thing to fix, I don't know. Everything's hasn't been too bad. Thanks to YouTube, I can pretty much look up like, how do I clean the heat exchanger on the sailboat? And there's 10 videos and it becomes very clear. Nothing's overly complicated on it. I had to replace the lines for the head, the toilet. It was sagging and smelling bad. So I had to crawl underneath the floor, pull that out. There's no rocket science there. It's just kind of dirty work.
Yeah.
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 It was fun putting a nice clean PVC pipe in there though, but
knowing that you wouldn't have any issues. And it's, you know what, full circle to shout out our friend of the show, The Fixer, who makes those YouTube videos that you watch, that people watch to learn how to fix things. And it's a credit to individuals like you who are able to kind of communicate through the process. He was telling us that's the hardest part of it, is when you're making one of those videos showing somebody how to do XYZ, you got to go and assume they know nothing about what you're doing, because that's why they're there to begin with. So yeah, I mean, YouTube's been a great vessel for that, pun intended. I think, you know, we've obviously got a lot of people who I try to do it as well, but that makes sense. I know you've got a lot of those videos where you're like chipping away at stuff, but what percentage do you think you're there to the point where you could just shove off and go?
I think I'm probably like 70% where I want to be. Mm-hmm. And as going back to that doctor, I like asked him so many questions. He's like, every boat is going to have a list of things that needs to be done, no matter what, new, old. And same on YouTube and all the stories is like, some people just continually prep their boat, like, and they never leave because there's always something else to do.
Yeah.
As far as big safety things, I want to replace some of the rigging. And after that, I think I could leave next week and feel very comfortable safety wise, but it wouldn't be as comfortable. And going back to like major refit stuff, the electrical here is nuts. There's wires like everywhere. It all works, but I want to clean it up. That's going to be the hardest, I'm sure. So I don't know.
We'll fly Paul out. We'll fly Paul out. We'll spend the week with you on the boat and he'll take care of it.
Yeah, I need him.
Yeah.
But I'm expecting a good like 4 or 5 months of solid, just like me pulling my hair out, trying to figure things out, but making the thing look nice and like be nice. So I can focus on the family and not fixing things. Although I know I will be, but that's okay.
Of course. You fix things in the house too, though. So give yourself a little credit. I mean, you built a kitchen. That's not bad.
Yeah. The house is still in project mode, which is like, so much going on. That's okay.
You have like a target date set for departure? Like, are you saying like we need to leave by July 1st of 2020?
Yes.
Like, okay.
The answer is yes, because generally to do this safely, which is my goal, if you stay in certain like middle latitudes of the earth and you go certain seasons, you can pretty much avoid any major storm. Okay. So to leave San Francisco going south to Mexico, everybody pretty much leaves in October. You can leave other months, but your chance of running into something, a little more lively increases. I want to avoid all of that. So the plan is really hope leave this October coming up, 2023. If we miss that deadline, I pretty much need to wait another year. So October, and I'm saying October 9th because that's the Liz and I's anniversary. And,
that's right.
Oh, nice.
And while she is on board with this idea, she's not
a good sport.
As in love with it as I am.
Yeah.
But she's like, babe, you know what? It is a good idea, and I'll do it for you.
she's just adventurous enough to be like, sure, why not? And which is probably how you guys ended up together anyway. So it makes sense, right? Good choices. Good choices beget good choices. Yep.
Yeah, so she's awesome. So I knew she'd go with it. I just had to like give a little bit of pressure, but she's the adventurous one, just like me, and she likes doing things, out of the box.
So you must have had other explorations, and you kind of alluded to it backstage. That you and Liz had gone around the country, and you've been, in a traveling nurse environment, having 3-month stints in different locations. But is that where you got sort of the travel bug? Has that always existed? What are some of the experiences or stories that you might have from previous travels?
Yeah, I don't know if it was my upbringing, but I was born in Arizona. We lived there for 2 years, moved to Oregon, lived there for 2 years, moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico, lived there for 7 years. My father was a electrical engineer, just kind of bounced around countries. And then after Albuquerque, we moved to Massachusetts. So it's kind of always moving around. Yeah. After high school, my friend Dave and we took a car, drove around the country. That was fun. Pre-cell phone, had AAA with the maps and like little lines.
I remember that.
It was great.
We're going to come back to that part later. Gibby's got a question for you that'll run congruent to that. So put a pin in it.
Oh, nice. But yeah, spent 5 weeks living out of a 1988 Ford Thunderbird. We'd swap like which night who had to sleep in the driver's seat because they didn't want to pay for a hotel. The steering wheel really jammed you up sleeping.
You're both nuts. I know I speak for Jesse when I say you're both insane.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then after that, I joined the Marine Reserves, in and out of that. Once college was done, I could not find a job with my degree, which was graphic design. I was working at Applebee's, decided to go back to school for nursing, did that, but I had this year off where I was waiting to get into nursing school. And then year off, single, nothing holding me down, sold everything, bought a round the world ticket, and then spent 8 months, flew to Fiji, New Zealand, Australia, Thailand, Greece, Europe, back home. That was awesome. Just backpacking. I think that really I don't know what gave me the driver to really do that. Actually thinking back right now, when I was in school for graphic design, there's this girl there who's going to New Zealand for ultimate Frisbee camp. but she's showing me pictures of New Zealand, and I'm like, that looks amazing. I need to go there. So that was another one of those. And then I don't know if that prompted the around the world thing. Anyway, I love traveling. And then I've been to Europe a couple times with Jesse and crew, going to Prague and Oktoberfest.
Mhm.
Been to England, Ireland, went to Peru. Forgot about that one. Did the Inca Trail.
Yep.
So I've loved traveling. It just feels raw, authentic. I like saying I live on like I love living on the lower levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Mhm.
The upper levels are just too, I think people get in their heads too much. I enjoy living life and like you feel and see things. And then where am I going to sleep tonight? What am I going to eat? And then when you solve those problems, whatever food you're eating, wherever it is, even if it doesn't taste that good, tastes delicious because like you're happy and like grateful you have like something to eat or a place to sleep.
Right.
And life to me is just much more enjoyable that way.
Yeah, it's a mindset. It's a mindset. It's
Yeah.
I think everybody has the means to do that, right? But it's a mindset thing to be safe outside of that comfort zone and to be, you are more comfortable when you aren't in the comfort zone. When you're in the comfort zone, you're bored and you're stressed out. It's the opposite of where most people are because you want to get back to home base. You want to be like, I'm safe here. I'm good here. That doesn't work for
Yeah.
you. So that probably fuels it quite a bit.
Yeah, I think that kind of summarizes things well. I get a little just like antsy. I'm like, am I wasting my life right now? Just kind of, doing the thing.
Yeah. And now you're on a massively successful podcast telling your story, and who knows where it goes from here.
Never know. Never know.
And we definitely want to explore with you, depending on what the internet connection looks like, and if we can get you back on, obviously before October 9th.
Yeah.
But definitely on some of those explorations as we keep going. We're not signing off yet. I still have a couple more questions for Aaron, but
Yeah.
So if all goes well and going back to the boat plan, if all goes well when you get down to Mexico, like, is there a end like, man, I would love to get here, or I would love to make it across the Pacific, or I'm really curious what the potential path could be in your mind, and I'm sure it's there because I know you've been cheering.
I guess in my ideal world, we do Mexico, and then a lot of people even leave their boats there for a few months over the summer. It's their kind of hurricane season.
Yeah.
So we could even fly home for a few months, go back, but then it'd be across the Pacific. And that path is Mexico to Marquesas Islands. You go through French Polynesia, Tahiti, and then you hit all these atolls out there, which are these reefs, these circular reefs in the middle of the Pacific. And some of them on like high tide, apparently you can barely even see the land, but you'll have like palm trees sticking up out of the sand.
Crazy.
And the snorkeling is supposed to be amazing. Everything's supposed to be amazing. And then after that, everybody follows the same route. Everybody that plays it safe and wants the easy sailing. And that's what I do. So French Polynesia, Tahiti, Society Islands, like the Cook Islands.
Yep.
From there, I believe, ultimately you have to decide, you have about 6 months to get out of that area out of typhoon region. A lot of people duck down in New Zealand, which would be amazing.
Yeah.
And then you could spend 6 months in New Zealand, kind of rest from the boat, check out New Zealand. Typhoon season passes, go up to Fiji, New Caledonia, and then Australia. And a lot of people do that. They'll sell the boat in Australia and then fly back. So that would be, if I did that, I'd be like, oh, that'd be
a lot. I mean, if you do that, you know what you have to do when you get to French Polynesia, I assume.
Oh yeah, some kava.
Yeah. So that'll be a requirement. Now that Brian knows this, because he'll listen to this, it's a requirement or he's going to be very upset. But
yeah, I got in touch with him after listening to the podcast with you. I'm like, Brian, it's been a while. Love that.
Yeah. He's excited.
He told me all the people around Petaluma that drink kava, and he's like, "Oh yeah."
He doesn't really know geography so much as he knows points of areas where there's kava being consumed and then what's near it. The other running joke I have with him is he doesn't really understand months. He goes by the number. So whenever I'm telling him, "Hey, what are you doing in March?" It's like month 3. Somehow he doesn't make that trans. But yeah, we've got a lot more Brian to come on this show for sure. We'll have to get both of you on at some point. See where that takes us.
I love Brian.
Yeah.
So going back to your road trip with Dave, when you're running around town, big question that's on the podcast. Every fireside chat, I've got to ask, okay, you know, you got to stop for gas. You're getting out of the car and you need something to eat. And I know you have a very basic needs profile, somewhere to, you know, a roof over your head and water, oxygen, etc. But you'd love a snack and you'd love something that really would pick you up. What would be your go-to? What would be your gas station snack of the the road trip?
Yeah, I remember you asking this to people. You know what? I lately have been really into these toffee covered peanuts. They're delicious.
Can you get those? Can you get those? Is there like a go-to commercial version of that, or is it a specialty snack?
You know what? I think so. I know they're at a gas station on the way home, and I try to skip that gas station. And sometimes Liz pats my stomach and she's like, "Aaron, you've been eating a little extra." Like, no bit, but yeah, toffee covered peanuts. They're delicious.
So that would travel well on the boat.
Yeah,
with high protein, high calorie intake for something.
Yeah,
you know, you need a little extra, and the size of the peanuts versus the protein that it's providing. So there you go.
Peanuts are a common. Peanuts have been a common theme across many of our snacks, and what we've learned is the peanut industry is safe. They're going to be fine no matter what they're doing. There's too many avenues into that world where they just really, the moat is large. So congrats to Big Peanut.
Can't go wrong.
No.
So what's the next project on the boat? What's the next thing you got coming up?
Multitude things. One, I'm taking down the standing rigging, which is the wires that keep the masts up. So I'm doing that. A lot of times people take the boat out of the water, they take the mast down, and then they get the standing rigging removed. But that would cost about $16,000, I think I was quoted. So I'm going to do it while it's in the water. Some people do that, and basically you take 2 stays down at a time. I'll bring them to the rigger. They'll make new sets, and I'll put it back up, replace that. While that's going on, we're kind of deep cleaning everything. We finally got all the stuff off of here from the original owner. Paint it, make it look nice. Once that's done, hitting the electrical up.
Yeah.
You're going to be FaceTiming with Paul quite a bit, I imagine, to sort those out.
I'll be pulling my hair out. But currently replace standing rigging, paint, make it clean. We'll start actually putting things back on the boat like we're going to have it when we sail off, because I know 11 months is going to come by really, really fast, or 10 months, whatever it is.
What advice would you give to someone that is starting to think about, oh man, I need something, this, you know,
I need a new life, a life jump.
Yeah.
I think I don't know, for me it's like, you can't be afraid to daydream a little bit, and you can't be afraid. I think fear holds a lot of people back, and when I mention this boat plan to anybody, like, usually the first response is, that's crazy, you're dangerous, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people forget that no matter what you do, you're mitigating risk in some way, and you're avoiding risk on the other end. So if I'm in the middle of the ocean, like, theoretically the boat could sink and we could die, but I'm also not driving a 3,000-pound metal vehicle 65 miles per hour down a freeway with other vehicles traveling just as same speed that can hit me, and I could die from somebody else doing, you know, there's so many,
right?
You know, I'm avoiding all of that risk. So, and then like the other thing I like to think about is, I work in the ER. I see a lot of people end of life stage, and I'll ask them, I'll be like, what do you think of this idea? What should I do? What advice can you give me? And the universal answer is, just go do it. Go do it now. You don't know what's going to happen in life. And all the people that did a lot of stuff when they were younger, they were just so like, they were content with where they're at. And then there's another crew of people, and they'd like spill how they were just like, oh, I wish I did. Don't wait. Just go do it. So I'd say you got something in your mind, write it down. You have to write it down on a piece of paper,
Yep.
research it, set a date to do it, and just, make it happen. I mean, worst case, you'll try it and it won't be for you, but you gave it a whirl and you still have the rest of your life to like figure things out.
Yeah, nothing's permanent. I've always admired that about you, like the zest for becoming like a student of life and learning. Like you're a lifelong learner too. Like you like to learn, different things. And a lot of what you mentioned there to me comes down to conversations that you and I have had a lot around probability and odds and statistics and just having a good grasp of being okay living your life thinking, okay, this is the percentage chance this could go wrong. And that's much lower than I expected it to be. I'm going to do it or not. And so,
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Well, I think it's great advice. And this is fantastic. We're wrapping up our brothers segment of the of the holiday week, but this has been awesome to meet you, Aaron. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more about this and having you back on, seeing how the electrical goes, holding firm on that 10-9 date, and see what other projects come up. So I'm definitely going to follow the boat plan on Instagram and check out the progress. But
I get pretty wild on there.
Thanks for indulging me.
Yeah. Thanks, bro. It was good to see you. Thanks for coming on. We'll have you back again, and we'll get a little update from you at some point on where you are in the journey, pre-journey, and we'll stay locked in with you.
Yeah, 100%.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks, bro.
All right. Merry Christmas to you guys. Good
See you,
talking
man.
to you.